Ryan's office revenge.
Let me provide the first part of the revised story. The morning Brady demoted me, I owned 42% of his company. He had no clue. I was sitting in that conference room watching him destroy his own career, and he didn't even know it. The room still smelled like burnt coffee and fresh carpet from their $40,000 renovation 6 months back. Knew everything except the mahogany table. You don't replace mahogany, especially when you don't actually own the building it sits in. Brady Holloway stood at the head of that table like he owned the world, pointing at some PowerPoint slide that read Lean Operational Footprint Phase 1 in letters you could see from space. His MacBook was cracked open, and every few seconds his eyes would drift down to it like he was reading cue cards for his own meeting. 8 people sat around watching this train wreck in real time, all shifting in their leather chairs like they wished they were anywhere else. Behind Brady, some young woman named Claire Davis clutched a tablet against her chest like body armor. Smart girl. She could sense what was coming even if her boss couldn't. I sat at the far end, hands folded, watching the show. Dean, Brady said without looking up from his laptop. Never made eye contact when he was about to screw someone over. Effective immediately. Your role is being restructured. We're transitioning you from VP of Manufacturing Operations to Shift Supervisor. Your compensation will be adjusted accordingly. 40% cut. From $140,000 down to $95,000, a $45,000 haircut delivered like he was reading the weather forecast. Brady adjusted his silk tie, the kind that costs more than most people make in a week. 28 years old, with manicured hands that had never touched a piece of machinery, never felt the heat from a furnace, never understood what it takes to actually make something real. He'd given himself the title Chief Restructuring Officer without bothering to get board approval. His mother, Victoria, was board chair, so he figured family privilege was authorization enough. I understand, I said. Just 2 words. He glanced up for maybe half a second, then right back to his screen. Took my calm for surrender. Most people do. They don't realize that the quieter a Marine gets, the more dangerous the situation becomes. My name is Dean Anthony Chambers. I'm 49 years old and I've been playing a very long game that just reached its endgame. Spent 8 years in the Marine Corps as a combat engineer, made staff sergeant, did 2 deployments to places where people were actively trying to kill me. My specialty was demolitions, structural analysis, and field fortification. The Corps burned 2 lessons into my brain that saved my ass more times than I can count. First lesson: stay calm when the fuse is burning. You don't rush, you don't panic, you count the seconds and breathe steady. The moment you lose your cool is the moment you make mistakes, and mistakes get people killed. Second lesson: learn to read a room that doesn't know it's already lost. Sometimes the enemy thinks they're winning right up until the charges go off. I've been at Steelbrook Manufacturing Solutions for 18 years. Walked through those doors at 31, fresh off active duty. Started on the foundry floor pouring molten alloy into molds. Same floor they just demoted me back to, which would have been insulting if it wasn't so damn funny. Came to Steelbrook because my Marine buddy Eddie Morrison said they were hiring, and because working with specialty metals made sense to a guy who'd spent 8 years understanding what happens to structures when you apply the right kind of pressure in exactly the right places. Started as a floor worker learning every piece of equipment by heart. Furnace number 3 runs hot, always has. Furnace number 7 has a pressure valve that sticks when the humidity gets above 60%. You learn these things not from manuals, but from standing next to 2,000-degree molten steel for 12 hours a day, watching, listening, feeling the vibration in your boots when something's about to go wrong. Most people hear a furnace. I learned to hear the differences. Chromium alloy running at optimal temperature has a specific pitch frequency, almost like a tuning fork. When that pitch drops even slightly, you've got contamination or a temperature variance that'll ruin a $50,000 batch. I caught those variations hundreds of times over the years, saved the company millions just by listening. Floor worker to line supervisor in 2 years, supervisor to plant manager in 4, plant manager to VP of Manufacturing Operations 11 years ago. Every single promotion earned by results, not politics. Every year, the same routine. Do the work, skip the office drama, cash the performance bonus, buy company stock. That last part is what Brady and his mother never bothered to check. My wife Linda died 6 years ago. Ovarian cancer that went from routine checkup to 18 months to live faster than anyone expected. She was a high school chemistry teacher who remembered every student's name from every class she ever taught. When she died, the church was standing room only with kids she'd taught decades ago, all grown up, all there to say goodbye. I wasn't there her last week. Line 3 had a catastrophic seal failure in the primary containment housing. Not just a leak, a complete structural breakdown that would have flooded the entire manufacturing floor with molten alloy if it had blown completely. We were looking at $12 million in equipment damage, 3 months of lost production, and possibly some dead workers if that containment wall came down during a shift change. I got the call at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. Linda was in hospice down to her last few days, but I drove to the plant anyway. Stayed there for 6 straight days managing the repair personally. Oversaw every weld, every pressure test, every millimeter of reconstruction. Slept on a cot in my office, ate vending machine sandwiches, and saved Steelbrook from bankruptcy. Linda died on Friday morning while I was testing the rebuilt pressure seals. The nurses said she asked for me at the end. I wasn't there. I was making sure the company that employed 340 people didn't go under. When my son Jason asked me later why work was more important than being with Mom, I didn't have a good answer. Still don't. But when the quarterly bonus came through for saving the company, I took every penny of that $44,000 and bought Steelbrook stock at the employee discount rate. All of it. If I was going to sacrifice my marriage for this place, I was damn sure going to own a piece of it. Jason was 16 when his mother died. He's 22 now, finishing mechanical engineering at Ohio State. Calls me every Sunday like clockwork. Kid's got more character than I probably deserve, and he's built like his mother, tall, serious, sees right through your bullshit. He still asks me about that week sometimes. I still don't have an answer that doesn't make me sound like a selfish bastard. But I kept buying the stock. Every quarter, every year, for 18 straight years. Most people don't understand how a floor worker ends up owning 42% of a $500 million company. It's not complicated, just requires patience and the ability to think longer term than quarterly earnings reports. It started with a pen. First year at Steelbrook, the founder Harold Gray walked the foundry floor every Friday afternoon. He was 74 then, sharp as a blade, always smelled like cigar smoke and machine oil, not the glad-handing corporate bullshit you see from executives now. Gray actually worked. He'd stop at every station, ask real questions, listen to the answers instead of just waiting for his turn to talk. November of my first year, he watched me recalibrate a pour sequence I'd redesigned to cut slag waste by 12%. I'd been thinking about the thermal dynamics, how the cooling patterns were creating inefficiencies. Simple physics, really, but nobody had bothered to question why they'd always done it one particular way. Gray didn't say anything for a full minute, just watched me work. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a silver pen engraved with SB Year 1. "Own what you build, son," he said, handing me that pen. "Paper without equity is just paper." Harold Gray died 9 years later of a heart attack in this same building, right there on the factory floor where he'd spent most of his adult life. I kept his pen, and I did exactly what he told me to do. Started with the employee stock purchase plan. Steelbrook offered shares at 15% discount to employees who reinvested their performance bonuses. Most guys took the cash, bought boats, paid off trucks, took vacations to Florida. Can't blame them. When you're working 50-hour weeks in 100-degree heat, that bonus check looks pretty good sitting in your wallet. I took the stock. Every quarter. Every year. Half a percentage point here, full percentage point there. Doesn't sound like much, but it adds up when you're patient and nobody's paying attention to what the floor supervisor is doing with his money. Then came the private opportunities. Over 14 years, 3 different executives retired and wanted to cash out their modest stock holdings. Nothing huge, we're talking guys who'd accumulated maybe 1% or 2% each over their careers. But they needed liquidity, and I needed equity. Tom Whitfield was first 15 years back. VP of Procurement, who wanted to buy a lake house in Michigan. We negotiated a fair price for his 1.8% stake. Cash deal, handshake agreement, paperwork filed with SEC within the required time frame. Ed Miller came next, 11 years ago. Director of Quality Assurance, same story. Wanted to help his daughter with college tuition. I bought his 2.1% for cash. The big one was Frank Ellis 9 years back. Outgoing CFO who'd been accumulating shares for 20 years, held about 4.2% total. Frank was getting divorced and needed clean books. I gave him fair market value, bought the whole block, filed the paperwork. Every transaction documented, every share transfer recorded, every disclosure submitted to the SEC on schedule under the name of the Chambers Holdings Trust. The trust was my buddy Woody Stevenson's idea. Woody and I served together in the same Marine unit, both staff sergeants, both combat engineers. We diffused IEDs side by side in places I can't name, trusted each other with our lives on a daily basis. When he transitioned to civilian life, Woody went to law school, ended up specializing in corporate securities and shareholder rights. He's 57 now, works at a mid-sized firm in Columbus, and he's the only person alive who knows my complete ownership position in Steelbrook. Woody set up the Chambers Holdings Trust 17 years ago, my second year at the company. Simple structure, bulletproof documentation. He filed every acquisition, submitted every SEC form on time, tracked every threshold. When my beneficial ownership crossed 5%, he filed Schedule 13D. When it hit 10%, 15%, 20%, all the way up to 42%. Every form submitted properly, every deadline met, every disclosure requirement satisfied. All publicly accessible information sitting in the Edgar database for anyone who wanted to look. Problem was, nobody ever bothered to look. The last time anyone on the Steelbrook Board of Directors reviewed the complete SEC ownership filings was 2014, 10 years ago. By then, I was already past 35%. They just assumed the institutional knowledge was current, that someone else was keeping track of who owned what. Nobody was. Woody also made sure I understood Article 7 of the Steelbrook Corporate Charter, the Emergency Shareholder Governance Clause. He explained it to me over black coffee in a Columbus diner 8 years ago, made me read through the legal language twice to make sure I understood every word. "This is your insurance policy," he told me, tapping the document with his finger. "Pray you never need it. Article 7 is very specific about shareholder rights. If any officer of the corporation takes unilateral action affecting the compensation, title, or duties of any employee holding a majority stake in the corporation's issued shares without the prior written consent of said shareholder, that shareholder may invoke Article 7 to convene an emergency board session within 36 hours. The key phrase is majority stake. At 42%, I didn't quite have majority control, but I had more shares than any other single entity, including the Holloway family's combined holdings. More importantly, Brady's self-appointed title of Chief Restructuring Officer had never been ratified by a full board resolution. His mother, Victoria, had created the position by executive memo and installed her son without a formal vote. 3 directors had objected at the time. Victoria had overridden them using her authority as board chair, which meant Brady had just restructured my compensation using authority that was legally questionable to begin with. I own 42% of Steelbrook Manufacturing Solutions. Market value of my stake, approximately $210 million, and a 28-year-old with a Wharton MBA and 14 months of PowerPoint consulting experience had just cut my salary by $45,000 without asking me, without asking the board, and without asking his mother's own general counsel. When Brady finished his little presentation and the meeting broke up, I didn't slam doors or raise my voice. Didn't say a word to anyone on the way out, just walked to the elevator, rode it down to the parking garage, sat in my F-150 for exactly 2 minutes. Linda's photo was still clipped to the sun visor, her laughing with Jason on her lap when he was 11, both of them squinting into the sunshine at some long-forgotten family picnic. Before the cancer, before the plant emergency, before everything went sideways. Then I pulled out my phone and called Woody Stevenson. He picked up on the second ring, didn't bother with hello. "I've been waiting for this call for about 7 years, Woody said. His voice was calm, steady, the same tone he used when we were working with live ordnance. "Tell me exactly what happened. Marines don't rush fuses, and lawyers don't rush filings, but Woody doesn't waste time either." I told him word for word. The conference room, the slide deck, the demotion from VP to shift supervisor. The $45,000 salary cut delivered like Brady was ordering lunch. 8 people sitting around that table watching it happen. Claire Davis standing behind her boss looking like she wanted to disappear into the carpet. Brady's laptop open the entire time, eyes drifting down to his screen like demoting an 18-year veteran was somewhere between checking email and his lunch plans. Woody was quiet for 4 seconds. I could hear him writing, that scratching sound of pen on legal pad that meant he was building a case in real time. His title, Woody said finally, Chief Restructuring Officer. Was it ratified by full board resolution? No. I've read every board resolution for the past 11 years. There's no vote authorizing that position. Victoria created it by executive memo and installed him. 3 directors objected at the time. She overrode them. And he took unilateral action affecting your compensation, title, and duties without your prior written consent. He did. Then Article 7 is live. I'll have the filing ready by 6:30. Emergency shareholder action under Article 7 of the Steelbrook Corporate Charter, submitted on behalf of the Chambers Holdings Trust, beneficial owner of 42% of issued shares. The board will be legally required to convene within 36 hours. I looked at Linda's photo clipped to the sun visor. After 18 years of playing this game, it was time to make the final move. Do it, I said. Already started? Click. It was 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Here's what I didn't do in the next 18 hours. Didn't call Brady. Didn't call Victoria Holloway. Didn't call anyone at Steelbrook. Didn't send emails. Didn't post anything on social media. Didn't update my LinkedIn profile. Didn't walk back into that building and tip my hand. I drove home to the house I'd bought 19 years ago, specifically because you could see the Steelbrook smokestacks from the back deck. Linda thought I was crazy. You want to stare at work from your porch, she'd said. But I wanted to see what I was building. Wanted that visual reminder every morning of where my future was being constructed one share at a time. Fed Cooper, my 11-year-old yellow lab who knew something had shifted the moment I walked through the door. Dogs can sense when the atmospheric pressure changes before a storm. Cooper didn't bring me his tennis ball like usual, just sat next to my chair and put his gray muzzle on my knee. I poured 3 fingers of bourbon. Not the daily drinking bottle, but the good stuff. Blanton's that Linda had given me for Christmas the year before she got sick. I'd been saving it for something special. Wasn't sure what, turned out it was this. Sat on the back deck, watching the sky go dark over the industrial district. Could see the lights in Steelbrook's executive suite from where I sat, 3rd floor corner office that used to be mine before Brady moved into it 7 months ago. Lights were still on. Good. Let him enjoy his last night playing executive. At 6:30, my phone buzzed. Text from Woody, filed, clock's running. I finished the bourbon, went inside, washed the glass, set it on the drying rack next to the single plate from dinner. Then I went to bed and slept 7 hours straight for the first time in months. While I slept, here's what happened. Woody's filing hit the Steelbrook corporate secretary's inbox at 6:32 p.m. Patricia Walsh, 58 years old, had held that position for 14 years and had never seen an Article 7 emergency filing. She opened the email at 7:15 p.m. while eating leftover Chinese takeout at her desk, read the first paragraph twice, then immediately called Andrew Sullivan, the general counsel. Andrew didn't answer. He was at dinner with his wife at some Italian place downtown, celebrating their anniversary. Patricia left a voicemail that cut right through the small talk. Andrew, we've received an Article 7 filing. Emergency shareholder action. You need to call me tonight. Andrew listened to that message at 9:40 p.m. while his wife was loading the dishwasher, called Patricia back immediately. Who filed it? He asked. An entity called the Chambers Holdings Trust. The filing claims beneficial ownership of 42% of issued shares. Andrew Sullivan had been Steelbrook's general counsel for 9 years. He was 63 years old, competent, careful, and deeply uncomfortable with what Brady had done to me that afternoon. He hadn't been consulted before the demotion. Brady hadn't asked him, hadn't asked anyone. Just walked into that conference room with a slide deck and a self-appointed title and restructured the compensation of an 18-year officer without legal review. Andrew sat down at his home office computer at 10:15 p.m. and opened the SEC's Edgar database, typed Steelbrook Manufacturing Solutions into the search field. The filings loaded slowly, years of documentation scrolling down his screen. He started with the most recent Schedule 13D amendment, filed 8 months earlier. Beneficial owner, Chambers Holdings Trust. Percentage of class, 42.0%. Then he scrolled backward through years of filings. Form 4s documenting every acquisition, every share transfer, every quarterly purchase through the employee stock plan. Schedule 13D amendments filed every time ownership thresholds were crossed. All of it documented, time-stamped, submitted on schedule. He printed every page. 43 pages total. Andrew's hand started shaking around page 9. By page 22, he'd loosened his tie and opened his collar. By page 38, he'd poured himself something he normally wouldn't touch on a weeknight. By page 43, he was sitting very still in his chair, staring at the wall above his computer screen. The filing was immaculate. Woody Stevenson doesn't make mistakes. Woody builds paper trails the way we used to build field fortifications. Every angle covered, every approach anticipated, every potential weakness reinforced with documentation. Andrew picked up his phone at 11:12 p.m. on a Tuesday night. He had a choice to make. He could call Brady first. Let the kid know what was coming, give him a chance to prepare some kind of defense. Instead, he called Victoria Holloway. She answered on the fourth ring. Her voice was careful, controlled the way it always was. Victoria had spent 11 years as board chair by never letting anyone see her sweat. Andrew, it's late. Victoria, I need you at headquarters first thing tomorrow morning. Your son has created a situation. What kind of situation? Dean Chambers owns 42% of this company, has for years. It's documented in continuous SEC filings going back 17 years. And your son just demoted him without board authorization, without legal review, and without the prior written consent of our largest shareholder. Silence on the line, 5 full seconds of nothing. That's not possible. I'm looking at 43 pages of SEC filings that say otherwise. Victoria, that man owns more of this company than every board member combined, including your family's holdings. Another silence, longer this time. Article 7 has been invoked. Andrew continued. We're legally required to convene an emergency board session within 36 hours. I need every director notified by 8 a.m. tomorrow. I also need to inform you that your son's title of Chief Restructuring Officer was never ratified by full board resolution, which means his authority to restructure anyone's compensation is legally questionable at best. Victoria Holloway didn't speak for nearly 10 seconds. When she finally did, her voice was different, quieter. The control was still there, but something underneath it had developed cracks. Does Brady know? No. Don't tell him. I'll handle this. But she didn't handle it. Because while Victoria Holloway sat in her $2 million house processing, the fact that her son had just kicked a hornet's nest the size of a $210 million shareholding position, Brady was busy making things worse. His Instagram story, posted at 11:47 p.m., showed a glass of champagne sitting on his desk. My old desk, the caption read, Day 1 of the new era, first move made. He had absolutely no idea that the board had already been convened to destroy him. I woke up Wednesday morning at 5:30, made black coffee, fed Cooper, and stood on the back deck in the early darkness watching the Steelbrook smokestacks against the gray sky. My phone was sitting on the kitchen table where I'd left it. Hadn't looked at it since Woody's text. When I finally picked it up at 6:50, I had 14 missed calls. 3 from numbers I didn't recognize. 2 from Andrew Sullivan's office line, 4 from his cell phone, 1 from Victoria Holloway directly, and 4 from Brady. Didn't return a single one. Instead, I poured a second cup of coffee and opened a text from Diana Rodriguez that had come in at 6:18 a.m. Deanna had been a floor supervisor for 12 years, smart as hell, should have been promoted to management years ago if this company gave a damn about merit. Dean, something's happening. Andrew Sullivan arrived at 6 a.m. Victoria Holloway pulled in right behind him. Brady's not here yet. Nobody will tell us anything. But the executive floor is locked down. Conference room A is being set up for a full board session on a Wednesday. I typed back 3 words. Thanks, Diana. She replied immediately. Thursday. Thursday what? I didn't answer. She'd figure it out soon enough. Thursday morning, October 17th, 9 to 22 a.m. I put on the charcoal gray suit Linda had picked out for me 11 years ago. She'd said it made me look like I owned something important. Navy blue tie, simple knot, Harold Gray's silver pen slipped into my inside jacket pocket where I could feel the weight of it against my chest. Drove to Steelbrook and parked in the main employee lot where the floor workers park their trucks. Been parking in that same spot for 18 years. The building looked exactly the same as always, limestone facade, glass entrance, smokestacks running behind it like steel fingers pointing at the sky. The Steelbrook Manufacturing Solutions logo was etched into the stone above the main doors, same font Harold Gray had approved back in 1971. Walked through the front entrance at 9:41 a.m. Eddie Morrison, the security guard who'd worked that desk for 16 years, looked up from his monitor and did something he'd never done before. He stood up. Mr. Chambers. Morning, Eddie. He didn't say anything else, but he nodded. The kind of nod that carries real weight. The kind you give a man when you know he's about to change everything. Woody was already waiting in the 3rd floor corridor outside conference room A. Navy suit, black leather briefcase, the same one he'd carried through law school 25 years ago. Scuffed corners, brass clasps, one of them slightly bent from when he dropped it getting out of a taxi in 2009. Woody doesn't replace things that still work. You ready for this? He asked. Been ready for 7 years, then let's go take back a boardroom. Conference room A was the same room where Brady had demoted me 48 hours earlier. Same frosted glass doors, same mahogany table, same $40,000 carpet. But today, everything was different. Today there were nameplates at every seat, and today the room belonged to me. 9 directors were already seated around that table. Andrew Sullivan sat at the far left with a stack of documents thick enough to stop a bullet. Patricia Walsh sat behind him with a legal pad and the expression of someone who hadn't slept in 2 days. Victoria Holloway occupied her usual position at the head of the table as board chair, hands flat on the polished wood surface, face perfectly composed and perfectly gray. At the opposite end of the table from Victoria, there was one empty chair. In front of it sat a brass nameplate that read, Chambers Holdings Trust, Principal Shareholder. Woody set his briefcase on the table beside my chair and took a seat in the row behind me. He didn't open the briefcase. Everything that mattered was already spread across Andrew's side of the table. I sat down, placed Harold Gray's pen on the mahogany surface in front of me, and folded my hands. The wall clock read 9:58. At 9:59, the door opened, and Brady Holloway walked in. He was wearing a slim-cut navy suit, brand new, probably cost more than most of my guys make in a month. Fresh haircut, silk tie, MacBook Pro tucked under his arm like a security blanket. He walked in with the confident stride of a man who thought he was early to a meeting he controlled. Then he saw the nameplates. Saw the 9 directors sitting in perfect silence, saw Andrew's mountain of SEC documents, saw Woody sitting quietly with his battle-scarred briefcase. Saw me at the far end of the table with a nameplate that identified me as the principal shareholder. He looked at his mother. Mom, what is this? Victoria didn't look at him. Her voice was flat, emotionless. Sit down, Brady. He didn't sit. He adjusted his expensive tie. I wasn't informed of any board session. If this is about the restructuring rollout, I have the Phase 2 presentation ready. And sit down. He sat. Andrew Sullivan stood up. He didn't clear his throat or shuffle papers or do any of the theatrical bullshit you see in movies. He just stood, and the room got quiet in a way that only happens when everyone knows what's coming, except the one person who should. This emergency session has been convened pursuant to Article 7 of the Steelbrook Manufacturing Solutions Corporate Charter, Andrew said. The filing was submitted Tuesday evening at 6:32 p.m. by the Chambers Holdings Trust on behalf of its sole beneficiary, Dean Anthony Chambers. Brady opened his MacBook. Close the laptop, Brady, Victoria said. He closed it slowly like a man in a dream. Andrew continued. The Chambers Holdings Trust holds 42% of Steelbrook Manufacturing Solutions issued shares. This position has been documented in continuous SEC filings, including Form 4 disclosures and Schedule 13D amendments for the past 17 years. Every filing is publicly accessible through the EDGAR database. He picked up the top document from his stack and held it where everyone could see it. At the current company valuation of $500 million, Mr. Chambers' 42% stake represents approximately $210 million in market value. One of the directors, Bill Hargrove, who'd been on this board for 7 years, leaned back in his chair and let out a long, slow breath. The woman next to him, Sandra Keller, closed her eyes for a moment like she was trying to wake up from a nightmare. Brady looked at me for the first time since he'd walked in. For the first time since I'd known him, he wasn't performing for an audience. The confidence was gone. The entitlement was gone. The smug superiority was gone. What was left was just a scared kid who'd finally realized he'd been playing a game where he didn't know the rules. That's not. He stopped, started again. Those filings can't be accurate. They're bulletproof, Woody said from behind me. His voice was calm, level, professional. The same tone he'd used when we were diffusing improvised explosive devices in places I can't name, every threshold properly reported, every transfer legally executed, every disclosure filed on schedule. 17 years of perfect documentation. I built this structure myself. Brady looked at his mother. Mom? Victoria's eyes remained fixed on the table. She didn't look up. Andrew set the document back down. Additionally, the title of Chief Restructuring Officer, under which Mr. Holloway took the action in question, was never ratified by a full board resolution. It was created by executive memo without formal vote, which means that Mr. Holloway's authority to restructure the compensation of any officer of this corporation is legally questionable at best. Brady's hands were flat on the table now. his face 2 shades paler than when he'd walked in. "This is just a clerical issue," he said, his voice getting higher. "A filing discrepancy. We can resolve this through proper governance review," and Brady Victoria's voice cut through his babbling like a blade. "Stop talking." He stopped. Andrew looked around the table at each director in turn. "A motion is before the board to reverse all restructuring actions taken by Brady Holloway and to remove Mr. Holloway from his position effective immediately. The motion has been submitted by our principal shareholder." He called the vote. One by one, each director stated their position clearly for the record. Director Hargrove, aye. Director Keller, aye. Director Morrison, aye. Down the line it went. 8 consecutive votes in favor. Andrew paused before the final vote. Chair Holloway. Victoria lifted her head for the first time and looked directly at her son. He stared back at her with the expression of a man who just watched his entire world collapse in real time. "Aye," she said. 9 votes in favor, 0 opposed. The motion carries unanimously. Mr. Holloway, your employment is terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises." Brady stood up so fast his chair rolled backward and hit the credenza behind him. He looked at me one last time. "You sat there Tuesday," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "You sat right there and said you understood." I met his eyes. "I did understand, Brady. Better than you ever will." The door opened. Eddie Morrison walked in with a second security officer. Eddie's face was professionally neutral, but I'd known him for 16 years, and I caught the tiny smile at the corner of his mouth. Brady looked at his mother one final time. She was staring at her hands. He walked out between the security guards without another word. The board meeting continued for another hour. They voted unanimously to appoint me interim CEO pending a formal review. My compensation was restored and restructured upward. Within 30 days, they approved an $18 million special dividend. My share, $7.6 million, deposited exactly 4 weeks after Brady had tried to demote me. Victoria Holloway resigned from the board 1 week later. No statement, no explanation, just a signed letter delivered to Patricia Walsh. Her 4.2% stake remains, but she'll never sit at that table again. Brady's Instagram post, the champagne glass on my old desk, with the caption "Day 1 of the new era." First move made, it's permanently archived in the SEC filing record. Now, his first move as an executive was his last move as anything. Deanna Rodriguez got the promotion she should have received years ago. When I told her she was the new director of operations, she stood in my office doorway and said, "About damn time, Dean." I kept Harold Gray's pen in my desk drawer, and his advice in my head, "Own what you build." I'd spent 18 years building something, and now I finally owned it. If you've ever sat quiet while someone underestimated you, if you've ever played the long game while others chased quick wins, if you've ever believed that patience and preparation beat privilege in politics, you know exactly how this story ends. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting mad, it's getting even, getting everything, and getting the last word without ever having to raise your voice. Keep building, keep buying, keep believing that merit wins in the end. Because eventually, it does.